Hi there, I'm Carol from Almost 2 Acres. Today we're going to create the best pollinator garden for you that native bees can't resist. Did you know that there are over 4,000 kinds of native bees in North America alone? If your pollinator garden doesn't have a lot of activity, or you're just getting started with pollinators and you want a guide, I'm here to help you. Today I'm going to show you how to roll out the red carpet for them. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, there's a silent crisis happening in gardens across America. We're losing our native bees, the unsung heroes responsible for pollinating 80% of our flowering plants. 80%! And most gardeners don't even realize they're part of the problem. Fact: a female native bee lives just 3 to 6 weeks as an adult. That's it. She has one chance to find the right flowers, build her nest, and position her babies for next year's generation. If she can't find what she needs in that tiny window, her entire genetic line ends. Unlike honeybees that live in big social colonies, most native bees are actually loners. They are solitary species with completely different life cycles and habitat needs. And listen to this: native plants are over 4 times more attractive to native bees than non native species. 4 times. So, if your pollinator garden isn't attracting these amazing native pollinators, there's probably a really simple reason why. Let's start with the basics, because once you understand how native bees actually live, everything else makes perfect sense. Most native bees live for about 1 year, but here's what's fascinating: we only see them as adults for 3 to 6 weeks. The rest of the time, they're developing underground or in plant stems. Here's something that may surprise you: 70% of native bees are ground nesters. They're not living in hives or trees, they're excavating sophisticated tunnel systems right in your soil. The other 30% are cavity nesters, living in hollow plant stems, old beetle holes, or similar spaces. Now, this is where it gets really cool. These bees have two main feeding strategies. You've got your generalists, who are like the buffet feeders. They'll visit any flower that looks good. Then you have specialists, and these are the picky eaters. Some species only collect pollen from one specific type of plant. For example, in Minnesota, there are bees called macropus that only visit Lysimachia flowers. They've been doing this dance together for thousands of years. It's like nature's ultimate exclusive relationship. Now, let's talk about the stars of your pollinator garden, the plants themselves. And I'm going to give you the strategy that works like magic. The secret is continuous bloom from early spring through late fall. Think of it like running a restaurant. You want to keep the kitchen open when your customers are hungry. Early spring blossoms are your emergency food sources. When native bees wake up from their winter nap, they're hungry. We're talking pussy willows, crocuses, bloodroot, and early fruit tree blossoms. These might seem simple, but they're literally lifesavers for emerging bees. Mid-season is when your pollinator garden really starts to party. Purple coneflower, bee balm, wild bergamot, and all those gorgeous sunflower family members. This is peak season for bee activity, so you want abundance here. Don't forget about fall. Your asters, goldenrod, Joe pyeweed. These are crucial for bees that are preparing for winter or species that emerge late in the season. I see so many pollinator gardens that are gorgeous in summer but totally empty come fall. Now, here's where native pollinator garden plants really shine. Remember that 4 times attraction rate I talked about? Native plants have been evolving with these bees for millions of years. It's like they speak the same language. When you're selecting pollinator garden plants, look for these characteristics: blues, purples, whites, and yellows. These are the colors bees see best. Avoid those fancy double flowers because they usually have less pollen and nectar. Keep it simple, keep it native. Okay, here's where most people's pollinator gardens fall short, and it's not about the plants, it's about the real estate. Remember how 70% of native bees nest in the ground? Well, if your entire garden is covered in thick mulch, you're basically putting up a no vacancy sign everywhere. In your pollinator garden, you should maintain these areas of bare or lightly mulched soil in the sunniest spots. South facing slopes are like prime real estate for ground nesting bees. I know it goes against everything we've been taught about gardening, but bare soil isn't bad. It's bee habitat. Now, for the cavity nesters, we need to think vertically. See these old plant stems? Joe pieweed, elderberry, raspberry canes, hydrangea stems. Leave them standing about 12 to 18 inches tall after your fall cleanup. Small carpenter bees love to excavate tunnels in these pithy stems. It's like providing tiny apartments for rent. And here's my favorite messy gardening tip. I maintain what I call my wild corner: brush piles, fallen logs, leaf litter. It might look untidy, but it's actually a 5-star hotel for overwintering bees. Here's the key insight about timing. Most native bees overwinter right in these protected spots as pupa or adults. They need undisturbed habitat from fall all the way through late spring. So resist that urge to clean everything up too early. Let's talk about managing your pollinator garden through the seasons, because timing is everything when it comes to supporting native bees. I know it's tempting to get out there and clean up as soon as the weather warms, but hold your horses. I don't do my major cleanup until late May. Why? Because bees are still emerging from their overwintering spots through early spring. When I do cut back perennials, I leave those 12 to 18-inch stubbles I mentioned. They're not just next year's nesting sites. Some might still have bees developing inside. Summer is all about observation and gentle maintenance. I'm out there watching which pollinator garden plants are attracting which bees, taking mental notes about timing and preferences, light weeding, deadheading spent blooms to keep the nectar flowing, and making sure my bare soil areas stay accessible. Fall care is where we need to completely flip our traditional gardening mindset. Instead of cutting everything down and cleaning everything up, I'm actually creating habitat for next year's bees. I leave seed heads for winter interest in bird food, maintain those brush piles, and resist the urge to rake up every single leaf. That messy look, it's actually a functioning ecosystem. Just tell my neighbors that. Before we move on to tips for your pollinator garden, make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on. I've got so much more content coming about pollinator plants, native bee identification, and seasonal garden management. Let me save you from the biggest mistakes I see in pollinator gardens. Mistake number 1: overmulching everywhere. If you mulch all your soil, you'll eliminate 70% of potential nesting sites. Mistake number 2: only planting for summer bloom. Spring and fall are just as important. Mistake number 3: choosing double flowers or non-native plants and wondering why the bees aren't interested. Mistake number 4: using pesticides. Even organic ones can harm native bees, which are often more sensitive than honeybees. Mistake number 5: too much spring cleaning. You're literally throwing away next year's bee population. All right, let's get practical. Here are my top tips for creating an irresistible native bee pollinator garden. Tip number 1: the 3-3-3 rule. Plant at least 3 different native species that bloom for each season, with at least 3 plants of each species, covering at least 3 square feet. This creates visible masses that bees can easily spot and provides reliable resources. Tip number 2: diverse flower shapes. Include both shallow, open flowers like asters for short-tongued bees and tubular flowers like penstemon for long-tongued species. Different bees have different dining preferences. Tip number 3: the 50-50 habitat rule. In your pollinator garden, about 50% should be planted with pollinator garden plants and 50% should be habitat, bare soil, brush piles, old stems, wild areas. Both are equally important. Tip number 4: water with landing strips. Provide shallow water with stones or twigs for landing platforms. Change it regularly to prevent mosquitoes, and consider creating a small muddy area that some bees use for nest construction. Tip number 5: become a bee detective. Spend time actually watching your pollinator garden. Note which plants attract different species, when various bees are most active, and where you see nesting activity. This knowledge will help you fine-tune your garden year after year. Here's what I want you to remember. Creating an amazing pollinator garden for native bees isn't just about the plants, though native pollinator garden plants are absolutely crucial. It's about understanding that you're creating a complete habitat system. You're providing food, shelter, nesting sites, and overwintering habitat for some of the most important and fascinating insects in North America. These native bees are out there doing the heavy lifting of pollination, often more efficiently than honeybees, and they're just waiting for someone to give them what they need. The best part?
Once you get this system established, it largely takes care of itself. You'll have this incredible, buzzing ecosystem that changes and evolves through the seasons.
I'd love to hear about your pollinator ideas. What's the first change you're going to make in your garden to invite those pollinators in?